And today I'm going to show you a chess game where, in my view, it probably wasn't such a good idea to take for white to take the rook with the knight, even though normally it's an excellent idea, unless they were really careful, okay? And you'll see what I mean in a minute. Here, white takes the pawn, and this produces an excellent, very well-known forking check. What that means is that the knight, the king is in check with the knight, and after the king moves, the knight can take the rook. In most situations, that is a brilliant move, but white is particularly vulnerable at the moment. The king has just moved out the way. It's just a random move, no strategy behind it. Then white takes the rook. Black then takes. Black moves up to threaten the king. Check. There are only two options. Either the king moves to this square, or the rook takes the pawn. Now, from what was now a disastrous move, white now took the pawn. They were scared, I believe, because they thought it was a threat, because it had the potential to become a queen. And also they thought that I might move my queen out the way, because now my queen has been threatened, and they thought I might move my queen out the way, and then they could take my rook. That's what I think they were thinking. It's bad, it's wrong, but that's what I think they were thinking. Instead, I'll move that back. Instead, I took their rook, so it became a rook exchange. And from here, it all went downhill. They moved their king. I moved a pawn up. Check. They moved a king. Check. And then they moved their king back. And now it is mate in one. There are two ways of getting mate in one. Can you find both of them? Okay, I'm going to hold on to that thought. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the game and show you the entire game. And then I will show you the checkmate that I used and the alternate checkmate that could have been used. Okay? So right, we'll start the game from the beginning. They moved d4. I moved h8. I'm an h8 person, okay? Nobody likes it, which is why I do it. They moved pawn 1 to e3. I moved the knight up. I moved their knight. They're threatening my knight. I'm protecting my knight. They choose to exchange their knight for my bishop. It's now threatening their knight. They move it back. I move a pawn up. A lot of this is fairly standard play-ish, I believe. An expert might disagree strongly, but it seems to be quite fairly standard to have the pawns where they are, I think, but an expert will probably totally disagree. I'm just moving pawns at the moment. They've taken... But some of this will become relevant later. Not these particular pawns, but I've moved back to protect my knight. And this is where I made a blunder, possibly. At the time it seemed like a blunder, at the time. Or maybe I was planning to trick them. I haven't worked out, because I did this a few nights ago and I've forgotten. But anyway, this is where I think it was a blunder. I took the pawn thinking that they wouldn't take back. Because if they did, I thought originally that they would lose their knight if they did do that. But what I forgot to notice was this queen protecting it, so therefore I would have to lose my queen to take the knight. So it was on the surface a blunder. Now I'm going to threaten the pawn. They take a pawn instead. I move the queen, check. I think I may be able to lull them into a trap of them concentrating on taking my rook, as I'm particularly interested at the moment in rook sacrifices. I move the king out the way. I take the pawn. When they moved the king, even though I don't think they had to, was they were worried I might do something like that. Worried I might do something like that. Why is it not doing it? Wait a minute. Why are you not doing this? Right, they're probably worried about if they did a different move, then I'm just going to move a stupid move for the sake of it for now. They were worried at some point that's a stupid move that nobody would have done. At some point I could have done that. I could have done that then. Oh no, I wouldn't have done that because of that. But anyway, I think they were a bit worried about the queen being vulnerable. The king being vulnerable, I mean. So. Then, done that. And maybe cause some potential problems for them later on. But anyway. They move the king there. I move my bishop to threaten the queen. They took my knight, I took their... So they took my bishop, I took their knight. And then, as I said, they did what you saw at the end of the game. I moved my king out of the way. There's no particular reason why I moved there rather than another square. They took it. Check. Check. And then move there. Check. There. Check. There's only one square they can move to, which is there. And I told you there were two possible checkmates I could do now. Two mating ones. Two ways I can get checkmate. Can you find both of them? I'm going to give you 10 seconds now. Right, well first I'm going to show you the checkmate I actually used. There. And the reason why I did that is because it's quite exotic. You see, it's getting a checkmate using a pawn and a queen. Rather than using a rook and a queen, which everybody does, practically. Well, not everybody, but you know what I mean. Beginners will probably. Right? I used a pawn and a queen, which is even more insulting, right? Because it's using a minor piece to protect the queen to get a checkmate. The other way, of course, would simply to have moved the rook, and that would have been checkmate as well. So there you go. Did you spot both of the checkmates? Thanks for watching. Bye.